So welcome to a late night on Thursday on the Pagan Perspective. I'm your host Yucca, and this week we're talking about will or intention. So I absolutely love the topic this week. I think it's really important and central to my practices. It's a very long and involved question, so it is written in the description box below. You can go ahead and read it. But I have distilled a couple questions from it, which is what I'll be addressing in this video. So those are, what is your will? How, as individuals, do you see your will? How does it relate to your view of witchcraft? And just general thoughts and opinions. So starting with the first two, or kind of one, what is will, and how are we supposed to put it out into the universe, I want to talk about what I think will is. And in this video I'll probably use the term will and intention interchangeably. For some people there's a difference between that. For me those tend to mean the same thing. So I don't think intention is something that we put out into the universe. Intention is something that we do to ourselves, and as a result of our intention and our will, we have actions and reactions, and that's what we put out into the universe, not our intentions. That's an inside world, actions are an outside world. So I believe that when we work with intentions, that we set intentions, the idea is to influence how we relate, how we feel about what's going on inside, which will then influence the outside. Now, we have different parts of ourselves. Part of ourselves we are very aware of, which I would call the conscious mind, and people call the conscious mind. And then we have our unconscious or subconscious mind, which is what's operating most of the time. That's the part of the mind which is having you stop at the stop sign. That's the part of the mind that when you walk into a dark room, you hit the wall looking for a light switch. That's the part that does everything, where all of our habits live, where our learned behavior, and not just our learned behavior, but our instinctual behavior too. For instance, we're born with certain behaviors that are natural to us, they're instinctual. Like if we start to fall, we curl, right? That's an instinctual behavior that lives in our subconscious. And things like our body language, most of the time, sometimes that does come into the conscious mind. And most of the times feelings, thoughts, and all of those things. Now the conscious mind is a lot more limited in the amount of space that it has and the amount of things that it can pay attention to at once. So it's wonderful that we have the subconscious that can take care of and deal with all the things, while our conscious is dealing with very specific things. So intention for me is taking something from the conscious and communicating to the subconscious and trying to have that be manifested in the subconscious without having to, well, you start with it being work, but hopefully eventually it doesn't become work and it's something that can happen without intense effort. And that's what I think when I do spell work, that's what spell work is about. It's setting that intention, it's communicating to that part of the mind. The question asks, how do we see our will? Now, I'm very visual in terms of, I like to, when I do intention setting, and intentions are things that sometimes are set in a big way and sometimes in small little ways. Now, if I'm doing ritual or spell work, then I tend to visualize it as a light. But I also think about it on a very kind of intellectual level as well. And the light depends on, the color of the light depends on what the actual intention is. And I guess the next question is, how does it relate to our view of witchcraft? And as I alluded to, I think that witchcraft is intention work. That's what I think spell work is and magic is that intentional changing of consciousness. And so in terms of how, you know, I use will or intention in my life, I come up with some examples. So sometimes it doesn't always take the form of what a lot of folks would recognize as a spell. I mean, sometimes it does. Sometimes I sit down, you know, I kind of clear my surroundings of distractions, and I'll cast a circle and I'll call in the quarters and do the whole ritual part to it, which I think helps to get into that space and helps to start to communicate to my subconscious. And then I will work on setting intention with visualization. You can check out my personal channel. I have some guided meditations, which are the way that I do my own personal meditations or rituals in that sense. But sometimes there are also personal choices that I make every day. An example is recently, well, a couple months ago, I decided that I wanted to like coconut. I have never liked the taste of coconut. I do now, but I didn't used to like the taste of coconut, and I decided that I didn't want to dislike it anymore. So I set the intention that I was going to change that. And I thought about, how can I change this? And I did a little visualization, but on top of that, I had an activity that I do. So I reconditioned my association with coconut. I bought coconut cream, which is great for you, healthy, depending on one's perception of healthy. And I would drink a small amount of it and warm it up and put some cinnamon in, and I would drink it in the morning at a time that I was cuddling with the cat and in the blankets and reading my book, and the morning light was coming in, and that's a time of day that I love. And so I would drink it that time of day to help myself form the connection between that good positive thing and this other thing that I didn't really like as much. And eventually I stopped disliking it and actually started to like it, and now have a good association with coconut. So that is a very, that's an example of using intention, and I think that everything that I did in there is a form of spell work, even though only one part of it had the formal structure that we often think of the ritual, well, the ritual structure, the ceremonial structure, but the repeating each day was also a ritual. I think a part about that as well is that intention is very, very important. But intention isn't something that is easy, I suppose. Well, it probably depends on what the intention is about. But often, going back to the coconut example, if I had just done one spell, right, and said, I'm going to like coconut, it might not, I think that I had to continue, I had to follow up on that intention and continue to set it and continue to be present with it for it to work. And that's a really important thing about intention. And it's something that I think gets missed when we talk about, oh, sending our intention or sending our will out into the universe, that other than what I said, that I don't think intention is for outside, I think intention's for inside, but that it takes work. If it's worth it, if it's something that really matters, it takes the work to achieve it, the time and the persistence. So again, it was a great topic. We actually have some really wonderful topics this month, super exciting. And a big welcome to the new substitutes who have joined the collab. Let us know what you think in the comments below, and see you next week.